Hi, everybody. This is Steve Maggi from SMA Law Firm. Welcome to Building the Bridge. I'm here with Michael Soon Lee, real estate broker extraordinaire and author based in the San Francisco area. Thanks for joining us, Michael.
You quite welcome, Steve.
So we both work with foreign nationals, and a lot of them come here or they're thinking of moving here permanently. They start thinking about buying a home. What are some of the most important things to keep in mind? It's a very daunting thing, right? So what are the first few things that they should think about, ideas, concepts that they should keep in mind when thinking about purchasing their first property in the US?
I think, Steve, the first thing they've got to think about is where in this giant country do you want to live? Obviously, it should be near wherever your business is going to be. And many I know of your audience members are constrained by that. They're going to start a business. And so where's the most appropriate place for that business? And so where's your audience? Do you have goods and services that you need to bring in and out? So do you need to be near a busy port like Houston, Texas, or Oakland, California, or someplace like that? Or does it matter? Are you in high tech where you can work out of any place? Then you've got to think about what quality of life do I want? And some of them may feel more comfortable in areas that are, much more diverse, and then maybe not. It really depends. But the United States is incredibly diverse in terms of culture and business and things of that nature. So first thing I would suggest they do, Steve, is, email me and I can at least narrow the world of the United States down to just a couple of different areas. But if they know they've got to be in particular, like in New York City, for example, well, that narrows their search down to, what kinds of properties are available to live
Right.
in New York. And as you know, New York can be quite expensive.
So can San Francisco. Well,
Yes.
the trend that we see in immigration, working with entrepreneurs and business owners, is a lot of these businesses now are virtual, or they're capable of being mostly virtual, which means that somebody can run their company even from their own home or from a different state. And so that does give people more flexibility than they might have had 15, 20 years ago.
And so what I do is I start out with just a questionnaire about their lifestyle.
Hmm.
What's most important to you? Is it the community? Is it the culture of the area? Is it the climate? And it really depends, but that can really, just those three questions can narrow the entire United States down to a couple of states. And then we dig down even further to figure out, what particular state, what particular locality. And then we start talking about price because price can be a big factor. In
Right.
California, prices are just going crazy and probably will for the near future. Same thing with New York, but there are many other places in the United States that have similar climates and atmosphere and culture that are nowhere near as expensive as the major metropolitan areas that most international visitors hear about. And so,
Fascinating. It really is, because
yes,
there's really a shift in focus, because what I've seen in the last 20 years of working with entrepreneurs is, first there was the mindset of Silicon Valley or nothing, or New York
right.
City or nothing. And then they realized that it's become almost prohibitively expensive, especially for small startups, to launch in those very expensive markets, which I guess also have very expensive housing. And so
Yes.
maybe if people are flexible, they will first decide where they want to live and then build their business in that area where it's probably going to be less expensive to run their business as well.
Many businesses start that way and expand that way. You kind of wonder, why is Microsoft up in Washington State? Well, it's someplace where Bill Gates loved living, and that's why it's there, which is actually, as you know, nowhere near Silicon Valley.
Hmm.
And yet, obviously, they have survived and thrived nowhere near, the hub of high tech. So don't necessarily think that, because high tech is in Silicon Valley, for example, that you have to be in Silicon Valley, or something else of that nature. A lot of big companies, including Amazon, Microsoft, and other major companies, are moving out of their traditional locations now and moving to much less expensive areas because they can do things virtually, online, using technology. I mean, it's amazing. You're not limited to all of the expensive areas of the United States anymore. And a lot of these other areas are now, their prices are going up. But it's important to narrow that search down. And then if you're working with a broker like myself, what we try to do is, number one, work with you on finance. If you need to get a loan, and most human beings don't have $1 million in cash in their hip pocket just walking around waiting to spend it. Most people want to get a loan. And by the way, as you know, Steve, as an investor, you don't want to use all of your money and stick it into a residence. You want to use other people's money and use the rest of it to grow your business, increase your marketing, right? Things of that nature. And so we try to get their financing in place first of all. Once that's done, then we can start looking at properties that work within their budget and in wherever they want to buy. But for people that are not US citizens or green card holders, we've got to get them to a lender who understands international banking. And there just aren't that many. And a number of those, Steve. Yeah, and they're not every bank in the United States. There are very few of them that are familiar with international banking and can make a loan work for an international buyer.
What I've noticed in all these years of practicing and working with real estate professionals is that so many real estate professionals are so hyper focused on their locality. And that's really important to understand your market. But at the same time, if they're going to be the first point of contact, why is it important for someone to be well connected like you, who understands the national move, how people are migrating to different cities, what the tendencies are in terms of the prices going up or down? How important is it to work with someone as your first point of contact that really has an idea of how things are moving in all the different markets in the US?
Well, obviously, Steve, when things are moving, which they do rather rapidly in the United States, Americans have a very short-term view of the world. And so for everybody's looking at the next year, what's going to happen to my property in the next year? Whereas many cultures have a very long-term view, and they're concerned about the next 50 to 100 years. They're not so concerned about what's happening next month or interest rate movements over the last week. But it is important, even in the long term, to know and work with a broker who can see, where are things moving?
Right.
Are they moving up or are they moving down? And it really doesn't matter which way it's moving as long as your broker knows that, because if things are moving down, it may be an opportunity to get a deal. If things are moving up, perhaps now it's time to jump in, maybe overpay a little bit, but then ride that up as it continues up for the long term. But just like stocks, you don't want to watch them every day. It'll drive you crazy.
You'll go crazy. And then I guess so part and parcel to that is knowing other great real estate brokers in other markets, right? So if somebody comes to you and says, I'm thinking of San Francisco, but I'm also looking at Memphis, Tennessee, and then someone there, then you can help guide them through and connect them with the right broker to be able to help them locally, right?
Absolutely. And, I've been in the business for over 40 years, and the way I've managed to survive in this business is not worry about a transaction. I worry about my client long term and how can I help them? And even if I don't see a commission immediately in the future, it doesn't matter to me. I will help them. Sometimes it comes back, but it always comes back in different ways. Maybe
Agreed.
they'll give me a referral down the road. But a lot of agents in the United States are very short-term focused. It's one transaction, that's it. Whereas, it's a client for a lifetime for me. So if I can help any of your members of your audience, Steve, I'm happy to do it. Don't worry about, oh, well, you're not going to make any money off of me. I don't care. If I can help you, I will help you. And, things come back. I believe in karma.
Absolutely.
If you send out good vibes, it will come back. It doesn't matter. But I'm always happy to help refer to any place in the United States or anywhere around the world that I have connections, because if it'll help them, it'll help the whole industry. And I think the world, as a result.
Yeah, everything does come back. We have the same long-term view. That's why we collaborate. And I'm really happy you've shared this knowledge with us. How does somebody get in touch with you if they have questions, if they're really now determined to buy a property in the US, they're on their way, maybe I've helped them get a visa or a green card, and they know where they want to live, or they have a few ideas. How do they get in touch with you?
Very simple, Steve. I'm happy to receive an email from anybody. My email is simply the number 88mlee@gmail.com, 88mlee@gmail. And I'm happy to hear from anybody, anytime.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for your time and for your knowledge, Michael.
You're welcome, Steve.